The hottest of topics here on Morning Kick Around. It's not just that store at the mall. It's a sizzler here on Friday. There was some news. There was a Pope selected this week after much debate, but the real debate within our confines, our conclave, if you will, who would be the best American candidate to be the soccer Pope? I
Right.
think you got a few people. We got to
I
conclave it
do.
up. There's
I
some
do.
selections here.
I got some thoughts. I got some candidates. We'll go through this. There's one obvious one that we'll probably start with. But what I was going to say is that, we understand, right? This is very much like the real church that has now picked an American. We don't know this is a long shot. Like, we understand that an American is unlikely to be selected soccer pope, right?
Yeah.
Probably going to be an Italian,
Would it be
probably,
is as likely as the real Pope being American, or even probably even bigger?
more unlikely. More unlikely is my thought, right? Because you would, my brain immediately went to Alex Ferguson as potentially a soccer pope candidate. You could throw, if you're talking about great living players, Dino Zoff, who's Italian, yeah, it could be a pope, soccer pope candidate.
I can definitely see the Inzaghi's being Cardinals.
Sure. Okay, sure. That's one. Paolo Maldini could be in that mix, of course. Arsene Wenger. Is he a soccer? He might be a controversial choice with some of his philosophies about the game these days, right? So he might not be your favorite idea of a soccer pope. But if we're an American soccer show. This is an American thing. We call it soccer over here. It's not. We're a soccer pope, not football pope. And so we need to know who our candidates might be for this conclave. Now, again, I'm going to throw up the obvious candidate. All right. This is the obvious candidate.
You didn't tell me about this one.
Eddie Pope is the obvious candidate. And here is Nicholas Murray, Pope Edward the 23rd. That's who we might want to throw up. And look, obviously he's got the countenance. Like thing about Eddie Pope is he's one of the just calmest, coolest characters I've ever seen. I don't think he loves the spotlight, Eddie Pope. He's working with Carolina Core down there in Carolina these days, part of that club. So, but obviously his name is Pope. He's got to be on our list for soccer Pope, right?
Fair enough. And when you asked me for my list, that didn't even come across my radar. So good shout here.
I mean, yeah, I think we all kind of forgot. I put up on Blue Sky that we were going to pick a soccer Pope, and I got people saying, wait, hold on. What about the guy whose actual name is Pope? Like, why wouldn't you have him as soccer Pope? All right, but if we're going to move on from Eddie, and obviously, again, I actually think he is a legitimate candidate for the kind of
beyond the namesake. He's
beyond having the right name. He is absolutely a candidate. But I wanted to center him before we move on to these gentlemen who could be candidates for soccer Pope. We've got Peter Vermees. Now, he's not currently working. He got fired by Sporting Kansas City.
He's available. He's available to take on a new role.
He's got the time. Now, he is more of a hardliner kind of figure within the soccer church that we how far are we taking this? So a bit of me is maybe more stick than carrot when it comes to how he pushes his papacy forward. Bob Bradley, maybe in the same vein as a Peter Vermees. Like if we're gonna call these, when you talk about the real election of a pope, there was lots of like, are they gonna pick a more conservative pope? Are they gonna pick a more liberal pope? Even though that spectrum is very different than our ideas of conservatism and liberalism, still there is that range within the College of Cardinals. And
so now that we're onto the second of these candidates you have on screen, I would say Bob Bradley would be more open to robust debate in a public setting than Vermees would be.
That might be true. Okay, but still very much a serious figure, right? We're not talking about a soft-spoken pope with a Bob Bradley. He's from New Jersey, goddammit. Like he's gonna bring some energy to the papacy. Bruce Arena also maybe in that vein. Obviously a massive figure within American soccer. And if we're talking about just in terms of resume, maybe who jumps off the page most, it's probably Bruce, right? It's probably, I mean, in terms of being purely raised within the American soccer sphere, because I've got a candidate down at the bottom that is maybe a maybe a compromise candidate, a little bit of an old world influence on his philosophy. Sunil Gulati. Now that was your idea. That was your idea.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember a couple of popes ago, there was kind of like an emperor vibe, an Emperor Palpatine sort of a vibe to him, and Sunil Gulati, the guy in the background, pulling the strings left and right, and I think that he's legitimate. If we're getting like a full spectrum of candidates, I think he's worth consideration in this conclave of ours.
Yeah, okay. I mean, he's impossible to ignore as a figure within the game in America. But I do think he's left behind him a wake of enemies that might make it difficult
For him
for
to be a
him
good
to be
candidate.
elected by the Cardinals. And by the way, we're not identifying the Cardinals. There's 133 of them in real life. We don't have time to pick the 133 Cardinals of the American Soccer Church. We're not doing that. Jurgen Klinsmann, Rob, that's the one I kind of surprised you with as well. I don't think we talked about him.
So I noticed a couple that I don't know if there's a second page of these faces, but there was a kind of an owner figure like the Anschutz face, but you swapped them out for Klinsmann.
I did.
And
I think the thing about Anschutz is he's a little bit reclusive, and yes, we didn't know a lot about the real Pope who was elected. He wasn't a public figure the way that some past popes have been in terms of his influence on the church, and maybe that's why he was a compromise candidate. But Anschutz, Philip Anschutz, as an idea, is interesting. Again, he sort of is the patron saint of American soccer on some level, a living character, because Lamar Hunt could probably also get that label, but of course he has passed. At this point, Phil Anschutz is 85 years old. I don't know that we want to elect a pope who might not be with us for very long. Like, we want a pope who's got skin in the game in terms of the future, right? Is that a fair way to look at this? I think we don't want a soccer pope who's going to be like, I'm leaving this mortal coil very soon, and I'll not really care what happens when I'm gone. So I think that's why I didn't put Phil Anschutz. Again, Jurgen Klinsmann.
What would be like? How would you characterize Jurgen Klinsmann? I think he's a bit. What would you call it? I'm losing my word.
I mean,
but
he's a little bit new agey in terms of his some of his ideas. So we've seen that come to the fore when he was head coach of the U.S. men's national team, and he had the guy who could tear phone books in half come and speak to the team. That kind of stuff. Motivational ideas that are maybe a little off the wall, a little out there. Like, what kind of influence would he have? You could argue that Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, Jurgen Klinsmann have already been sort of our American soccer cardinal, at least, like the representative of North American soccer in terms of the Church of Soccer, because they've been head coach of the U.S. men's national team. Maybe they've already had their time, and we
similar
need to
to
move on.
Gulati, has Klinsmann left too many enemies in his wake?
It's possible, absolutely possible, that he would not get enough support, even from the American constituency, rather. Landon Donovan. Now, look, greatest American soccer player. That's maybe a debate some people want to have, but he certainly is a massive figure. And then Tony Meola, who I think really could be a bridge builder if we got him elected as soccer pope. Robert.
Yeah, he's got the firm but fair energy. He's respected on multiple levels. He's genuinely one of the most famous, homegrown American figures. And he had some actual mainstream stardom. He was a pop culture figure for a while, but very measured. He seems like he has firm beliefs in what he believes in, but is also willing to listen to others. I think that I think he might have saved the best for last year.
A guy who is in his career now, he's obviously very focused on the broadcasting side of things these days with Call It What You Want and CBS and the games he calls. But Tony Meola is a guy who's been very invested in the young players of America. And I think I want that in a soccer pope. I want a pope who is very much about the next generation. Like, if we don't pass those things along, if we're not being conscious of growing some soccer players and a new generation, then everything shuts down, and there is no more church, I guess, if we're doing this analogy. And here we go. All right, so this one I left out.
You led our discussion about this off cam about who's going to be the first one to bring up the double deuce.
Yeah, and the Mike Thomas member, shout out to Mike. By the way, we got a goal going on. We mentioned that earlier. I just kind of got it started. Super chat can lead to a corrections extra time on today's show if you hit us up there. Deacon Deuce. So this is a reference, man. I got to explain this thing. This is a best soccer show cultural reference. Mike Thomas is bringing to the table here. A long time supporter of the best soccer show, Mike Thomas. Yeah, once upon a time, Jared Dubois did a character, a bit, where he was Deacon Deuce, almost like a Southern Baptist preacher in the form of Clint Dempsey. So that's a while ago, Mike. Wow, what a reference. So
Deep
there
cut,
you go.
deep cut. So from the chat, so Kat, what's the consensus of the candidates we've put out there? I mean, there's been a couple people shouting out Alexi Lalas or Winalda. You know, she get in the mix. The
divisive figures. I'll point that out. I work with one of those guys on a daily basis, but you have to acknowledge that not everybody is on board sometimes with the rhetoric used by Alexi or Eric, and oftentimes they're on opposite sides, so they kind of would be maybe two guys who would be splitting votes in that way, because you'd have one side of the spectrum maybe going for Alexi and another one going for Eric. Black smoke. Yeah, we don't have any white smoke. I think it's pretty clear that we have not reached a consensus with our voting, Robert. We do not have a soccer pope. Not yet.
Yeah, have your say in the chat. But good topic there, Jason. Who will be the best American candidate for soccer pope? My money's on Miola for the record, but we'll see how the conversation develops after this video goes up.
Can I give a slight disclaimer here, just in case? And nobody in this chat has responded negatively to any of this, and that's good. I'm glad. Thank you very much for taking it in the spirit.
We're having fun, yeah.
This is not sacrilegious, or at least I don't think it is. In fact, my family is Catholic, and we go to mass every Sunday. So I would be in big trouble if this was something that was actually untoward on the religious front. So it just soccer pope, it's a fun idea.
Member drive. We got to get members, super chats, subscribers. Help Morning Kickaround become one of the conversation centers for American soccer. We've gotten a nice little groundswell, and the last few months have been great for growth. And we want to keep on kicking on. There's like probably a 10xer we want to get to probably by the time end of the year. What we want to get past 10K subscribers by 2026, right?
Absolutely. That's the goal, right? We're going to celebrate the World Cup arriving in America by going big with our numbers. I think we can get there.
So hit those buttons, subscribe, and do whatever you can. Help out however you can. But viewership is awesome regardless. Follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, and look us up on your favorite podcast platform. Morning Kickaround is all you got to search, and you can take us in podcast format.